What is up, everybody? Shout Scout 0013 here, coming in with Canadian Bear Graham.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about list building and what goes into list building and kind of like how to list build, slash, like what you need to be thinking about when you're list building, because that is the main thing I started with this channel. It was specifically only about list building and kind of like how to build lists, what to do. And it's evolved into being able to talk with people like Graham and a bunch of different other mods and stuff about their lists at tournaments and kind of like what they thought about whenever they were building it. And I kind of wanted to have a discussion with him about specifically list building, either for new players or people who are trying to get in the competitive scene or whatever your skill level is. Hopefully, this is going to be a learning experience for you. But yeah, so we were kind of talking first a little bit about the objectives and kind of like what you're thinking about. And there's a few different list types, maybe like that you're going to be using whenever you are going after objectives. So Graham, I'll let you kind of take the floor on this one about the spear and the independent teamwork stuff.
Um, so I was trying to come up with names with this, but just before the show with you, uh, I can't. Uh, we weren't able to think of a good one to be the inverse of a spear list. So instead, we fall back on good old Legion terms of teamwork and independent.
Yeah, yes.
So when you're looking at the objectives right now, there's really only two kinds at the moment. There's ones that make you want to uh, bunch up, kind of pick a side, go from there, and venture forth. And then there's ones where you have to be more spread out, more independent, um, and you need to be able to respond more freely. Um, it's kind of what the two types of objectives are right now, with notable except or no, there's a couple of exceptions that are kind of more flavor. Um, like we've got close the pocket and bunker assault are very much um, teamwork, like spearhead type lists where you're picking your lane and you're going from there to conquer the other objectives. Whereas you look at something like breakthrough and intercept signals, and you need to have things that can at the very least defend on their own, if not be offensive on their own. And then the rest of your army can try to focus down a different side. Um, and then you have things like recover the research and shifting priorities. Um, Shifting priorities, you could probably argue that it's tends to be more of your teamwork type list, just or it can turn into that depending on how your opponent and you respond to each other during the turn one deployment. Because I had an interesting game with Nick on TTS the other day where we ended up putting two of the POIs right next to each other eventually. So we had 6 units all fighting over two objectives, and they could both count them at the same time.
Whoa, that's a good idea, especially when you're running short
So,
on like activations and stuff.
oh yeah, no, it was great. It was very very funny. Just like, huh, what do we do here now?
Hmm.
um, and then with recover the research, recover the research when you look at it is kind of the inverse of breakthrough on the picture versus when you see it on the tabletop. Breakthrough looks so far apart on the picture, and then you see it on the table, like, oh, those two, your point and your opponent's point, they're not that far apart. Whereas recover the research looks very close on the picture, and then you get there and you see where you have to go for the fourth point, and it is nowhere near anything else. um,
Yeah,
so that
yeah breakthroughs. It's only like what 1 about three
You can
away.
get there on turn one potentially with certain units. It's ridiculous.
Hmm.
Like if you have like
Yeah.
an infiltrate unit or something like that, you put them there, you double move, you're already there. Turn one.
Maybe that and or like snail tank or something along the like really big bases. You think or
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. That speeder bikes of any variety really could do it. Um, so yeah, there's stuff like that. But yeah, like recover the research is definitely, I would say, is more of a you need to really spread out so you have the potential to get the maximum point value per turn. Um, it's much more of like an independent list. But yeah, those are the two things I look at is like what kind of list do I want to build? Do I want to build a teamwork, spearhead, bunching up list, or do I want to build an independent, you guys each go your own different way um, kind of list?
and so maybe like some examples for like teamwork and or independent. What kind of like example lists would you say?
Um, so if we want to make it confusing, let's go to Shadow Collective.
Yeah, let's do it.
um, so I would say an independent Shadow Collective list would either have um, the swoop bikes or would have Mandalorians just because they're so fast and relatively durable with the independent dodge potentially on the swoops or the surging red saves with shields on the Mandos um, and their speed. You can make that pretty independent, whereas a lot of your other stuff, like your Black Suns and your Pikes, really want to stay close to each other and just kind of force through what they can do. Um, Another thing would be, I think, a lot of probably Yoda Chewie lists specifically for Republic are more of a independent list, just because of the Chewie two pip with the whole backpack thing. You can, as the people who have played against it can attest, you can get to the other side, essentially by turn two with Yoda,
Mm.
and yeah. Then you can have something else go a little bit the other way, especially since there's arcs and clone commandos. They're very much something that can survive on their own or decently, or at least with a small number of units. Um, Whereas then you've got something like Wookiees, or really even just a straight Yoda list or Yoda with certain other commanders. That would be, I would say, more of a team up spearhead list because everything wants to stick more closely together. You don't have um, the type of maneuverability on the same level that you do with the two pip interaction with Chewie.
Yeah, so yeah, and also kind of like are you gonna make any of them more aggressive and or more like capable of splitting up and being I guess more either not defensive, but I know because I know that you were kind of mentioning maybe not so much as a defensive list that can kind of take the brunt of something and just kind of withstand the storm coming on, or something that's kind of like resilient enough, like with a bunch of medics. Was there anything like specific? And I could just be going off on a random tangent about this.
Um,
That's going to be better with the different objectives.
so like for my for the Yoda Chewie list that I was running at Crucible when I first played the 21 act list, I pretty much I stuck Delta all by themselves on the other end, and the rest of my army was on one side. Mostly because it was in heavy cover, and they could just sit there. I don't have to worry about getting them in order. It's like, okay, get your shield back and just aim, shoot. Just hand out suppression. You primarily use the suppressive gun, slow stuff down. So they're having to think more about, hey, do I need to send more stuff over to the other side? And maybe have that dilute. Um, that was kind of one of those game plans for breakthrough, and that list I kind of before thinking about trying to how to classify it, I was kind of designing it in that lane of being a more independent list, I guess. Have multiple things that don't feel like they're about to fall over as soon as they get away from everyone else.
Because I know that usually whenever I'm experimenting with maybe Shadow Collective, or even when I was doing the 501st a while back, I had like Anakin and Rex, and if they needed to split up, they could split up, or if they needed to stick together, they could stick together. With Shadow Collective, the easiest again that I can think of is like Maul and Mandos. They want to stick together, but like maybe shot the Black Sun and the Vigos could go in a different direction if they had to split up, because they're at least got enough firepower to be able to hold on and red dive saves to kind of stay
Yep.
alive a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or
I fall back on.
yeah, and you had the clone commandos that could just kind of go into one corner and hold it because of their resiliency with guitar and armor and the shield, while the arcs and Anakin went up somewhere, and then the strike teams and Rex and the core could go somewhere else. I feel like kind of building a good balance where if you had to split the army could be a really good idea when list building, or depending on, like you said, like close the pocket and or maybe intercept or bunker assault. Yeah, for the bunker assault, you kind of have to have a little bit of your armies spread out to hold your own bunker, but you could also kind of go full force on one side and just kind of steamroll that one side
Yeah.
of your opponent and then kind of move over once that bunker is destroyed and kind of like pincer in that kind of way, or at least holding your own objective in the back or something like that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I
Because like
guess
in
there's
Bunker Salt, you're never too far away. There's lots of opportunities for you to catch up with your defenders or to fall back with your attackers. So yeah, it can be very much a uh, like that type of list. Yeah.
okay. So next up, we can kind of talk about like synergies. So like when you are list building, you're trying to think of units that kind of work together in a sense. So obviously you've got stuff like Cassian and K2. You've got stuff like Han and Chewie. You have stuff like Yoda Chewie. You have stuff like Aiden and Inferno. And Sabine maybe and Ahsoka. Rebels have a lot of different ways to kind of create
Yeah.
really good synergy, and obviously clones I feel like also have a great way. Now, CIS, which both of us don't really play much or if any CIS, but they do have some. I feel like some synergies that they've got going on, like Count Dooku and Asajj. You've got Grievous and Magnus, and you've got a lot of B2s and Poggle along with Sunfac. So I mean, they've also got quite a bit of really good synergies with cards that work together, and um, yeah, stuff like that. But besides the synergies, you've also got upgrades that can really help each other. So, as I had mentioned on the Iden and Inferno, you have Governor Price on maybe the ATST or the Gav tank that can hand out a free aim to Inferno Squad, which, they're going to use it for marksman. Or obviously you can give it to, you know, now that Veers and the general or the generic commander have
Yeah.
exemplar, you can give that extra suppression to any of them, and or even Iden, because she's courage 3, because they'll get a suppression 2, and Inferno Squad is courage 3, so it's not really going to matter if they get a suppression, unlike maybe Veers, who is only courage 2. But Yeah, you've got like those types of synergies, and that's really nice. Clones have, I feel like, the best synergy with the fact that they can token share and stuff. So you don't have too much to worry about because they're already going to be sharing a lot and doing a lot. So it's just now a matter of pairing. So like Anakin, I feel like is okay on his own, but he's going to be even better and even more efficient in 501st. That's because now
Yeah.
you have access to more command cards, and he does really, really well with strike teams, and you can fit even more strike teams because once a strike team is dead, tempted is triggered, and so it's an easy way to get an extra move or attack by sacrificing a model or two, and it's going down really quick. You can also move them up the field pretty quickly. So I don't know if you've got any other types. I mean, I guess you also have. Well, yeah, yeah. So you've got like Vader and Dews because of the infinite courage, and Dewback's constantly gaining suppression. So trying to get those pairs together is another huge thing to think about whenever you're list building.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, doubling down is say doubling down is never a bad idea, but it is hard to compete sometimes at what everything wants to kind of double down towards. Because typically that means right now is you're doubling down into the prime arc real estate.
Yeah, yeah.
Sad
Arcs
Wookiee noises.
for real. Yeah, arcs are just so good. They have it all: tactical,
Yep.
charge, red die saves, token sharing, a possible surge token. So yeah, they're gonna be so good. You can also build up weaknesses. So like uh, clones have the token sharing, which if you're bringing the clone commandos, obviously they can share a surge if they need to, if they're outside of the little command or complete the mission token.
Yep.
And it's really nice. Let's see if there was any other. Let's see. Yeah, no, that's what you got there. That's all I got for that one. I would say another thing is like threat saturation. So, yeah, it's almost. I feel like it can be considered two different things. Like on the board, you kind of want to have enough like hard hitting units. So like maybe you've got, for an example that I was going to come out with later on was a rebel cell list. You know, with let's see, who was it with? I think just like there was one that I had with like three sleeper cells, and they all have the rebel officer, so that you get 7 minis that can shoot 2 dice. You've got three of those, and then you've got at least two full stacked out Pike Syndicate foot soldiers that have the capo and the long gun, and then you've also got like maybe Boba or someone else who can really start shooting off. And you've also got Cassian and K2. And in that one, you've got K2 that can give either Boba some stuff since he's going to be Courage 3. And with Calculate the Odds, yeah, you're giving him an aim, a dodge, and suppression. But if you were to play like his 2 pip or what the. Let's see, what is it? Is it oh, his 1 pip that gives him marksman, a simple man. Like if you were to
Oh
have
yeah.
him have like the all right. So you have K2 giving out calculate the odds on a simple man, and then you then eventually go with him through seize the initiative. You've got now 2 aim tokens, a dodge token, and then he's got tactical. Yeah, he's got tactical.
Yeah.
So you take a move and then you shoot. And you've got 3 aims, and with marksman, you're definitely going to be at least getting like a few crits, if not all 3 crits, and it's Pierce 1.
I hope so.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, and then he still has a dodge, and so I mean that's pretty decent. And again, you've also got like rule it with respect, and using that with Cassian's sniper, and then if you're capable of using it close enough with the rebel sleeper cell, you're rolling, especially with the rebel officer, 14 dice and plus another black. So that's 15 black dice. And that's everyone at range one. So if all your sleeper cells and boba are going on the same spot, you've got a really hard hitting, hopefully deletion of a unit kind of few things. So I feel like that would be kind of like an example of a threat saturation built into the list is, you know, at least three of a really, really good unit, and or, you go down to like three simple rebel core, and then you just kind of build up as many hard hitting threats as possible. Kind of like, even if you were to go Empire, like three dewbacks, you've got Vader, you've got maybe some IRG in there. So you've got lots of stuff that they're going to have to worry about. And they're going to have a lot of hard choices to make. So that is another thing that you kind of want to think about when you're building is making your opponent have to make hard and tough decisions, whether they're going to shoot or move, defend, whatever they're going to do. So, yeah.
Which I think that kind of leans into one point that we talked about before today was try to avoid having your entire army be only range 2
Yeah. Yes. That
because that there's still a lot of range 3 and a lot of range 4 out there. And if they can get a free turn or two shooting at you with majority of their stuff and you can barely return fire, that feels real bad.
yeah, when you have to spend as many turns as possible trying to move up the field, and they're just shooting at you, you're already at a disadvantage. Like for Wookiees, for example, as you might know,
Yeah.
all range two, except for the ranged Wookiees. Hey, you do have at least
Yeah.
those,
Yeah. Uh,
and
goodness,
white
yeah.
dice.
Yeah.
Not even black dice. That's so tough. But
Yeah, it's all fingers
that's why.
crossed.
Yeah. Oh, let's hope. Let's hope they at least get a black dice. That'd be really. Well, I guess two black dice each. That'd be even better. But
But
yeah,
yeah,
they're like,
and the other thing you can look at, and I honestly I do hope because that this will expand is that we get more skew list potential in the future once we get more objectives and once we get the other half 60% of the unit cards that need to get updated.
yeah,
Um,
that's needed. And also, real quick, just for the audience sake, especially for new players or anything like that, can you explain what you mean by creating a skew list?
so a skew list right now, the ones that I can think of would be something that is you have to go out of your way to specialize in something that isn't achievable in the normal list. So you've got your triple ATST Tempest, so your heavy armor skew. Um, you have your melee skews, so Ewoks and Wookiees, and apparently now Arcs. um, and then you also have, I'd say right now it's probably a skew just from how you have to balance upgrades versus activations, and that would be axe spam. Um, because it's not something normal. You really have to go out of your way to achieve that outcome, and it has a specific goal in mind. Um, and it's kind of focused in on one. In Legacy Legion, it would have been one set of objectives you're really focusing in on that makes it really hard for your opponent to respond to. So the classic one in that case was speeder bikes, just like especially on something like bombing run. Um, they just can't do anything about it because you're all the way on the other side. But that was also tied into getting uh, long or shortage to shortage deployments, so that you're really getting to get an advantage from the speed of your speeder bikes.
Yeah, I would say even Yoda and hostage exchange. Yoda recover the
Yeah,
supplies, like a
yeah, like
bunch of stuff
force
like
user
that.
skews were a thing, but that too is somewhat less of a skew, only just because everyone had access to like the force push shenanigans, because that was really the thing. Because unless you include Vader, Palpatine, and Yoda, those three were kind of by themselves. um, Luke kind of could with "You Serve," I think is the one, right? Where you get to
Use
move
the
a
other
friendly
person.
unit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
either move a friendly unit or attack with a suppressed enemy unit.
yeah. Um, that's kind of like the one, but that wasn't really seen too often with hostage. It felt like. Um, so yeah, there's things like that. Um, Honestly, the big ones right now is, at least in my local, I would say it's armor skews, because there's so much armor by me. There's at least one triple ATST and then like a double ATST player, and then
Uh,
other stuff too. And yeah,
yeah, armor is so tough to beat up against. I mean, you might have armor
range
5, but yeah, well, yeah, I mean that. But you have to like prepare for armor. You can't just like.
range for armor 5 against Wookiees. It does not go well.
Ah, yeah, you're dead before you can make it to the middle.
Yep. And that was on uh recover the research. So that middle fourth point that you're trying to go for is like, nope, forget about it. Just try to survive.
Right, and you got to try to plan somehow on the other
Yep.
objectives. Which also kind of brings us to kind of like another way is you have threat saturation. Threat saturation. Wow, I cannot say that at all today for some reason. You've got your skew lists. You've got your synergizing like teamwork stuff, like I said, Cassian and K2, plus the other teamwork stuff where you can split the armories and spearhead. Um, and I feel like kind of knowing the objectives that you really want to play is also another big thing. Because like with bunker assault, you're really looking to have more commander, operative, special forces. Maybe like close the pocket, you're probably gonna want the same thing. And then like shifting and research can just go either way. But like with intercept and breakthrough, you're kind of looking at something a little different because of the requirements for those. Like with so breakthrough is kind of like we were saying earlier, you kind of have to split your forces. It might be close on each side, but you have to figure out kind of like what side. And so when you're deploying, that's going to make a huge thing. And that's where also the act uh, skew can come into handy because then, you might put like 2 or 3 on one side, making your opponent think that you're going to go full in on that one side. And then you put the rest of your army on the other side, and they have committed more to that one, and you just kind of force them to make their way in another way. Um, yeah.
I will say, it's funny that you say that, because I accidentally did that to him when I put Delta by themselves. He really focused down on trying to kill Delta, so he had a whole bunch of stuff on that side. Uh, so that was
See,
funny.
yeah, it works. It's a good plan because that's what I would do with my strike teams. I'd especially with close the pocket because you want one side, and you don't want your opponent to be on the same side of the board on the opposite end. You want him to be over here and you over here, especially if you've got long range stuff like your strike teams or range troopers or something like that. And so I would always put one strike team on one end as my very first kind of deployment and try to get him to focus all of his his minis on that one side, and then I would just stack the board on the other side, and so that would split his forces, making it way easier for the one side to just take out that whole side of the board, and then he's wasted a turn or two trying to shoot at my strike team instead of move. And yeah, so there's lots of things you want to keep thinking about strategy wise when you're building your list. You also need to think of what units can I sacrifice and or what units are going to die soon or off them. No, I don't want to say that. Like unalive, as the Gen Zers are saying nowadays. Uh,
To defeat the YouTube algorithm.
yes, exactly. Sorry that I said kill YouTube. Or sorry. Oh
We're
well.
far
Oh,
enough into the video.
yeah, right. But yeah, you have to kind of think about these units will be sacrificed or these units are going to go down. What can I do with them? How useful can I make them? And also just the efficiency of command card stuff. You want to think about units that go well together. In Rebels, you've got so many great units that really synergize again command card wise with each other. So like Boba Fett's 3-pip can really go well with strike teams or really go well with, you know, big things, and Cassian goes very very well with operatives and commanders and stuff like that, unlike Vader, who is very selfish and all about himself, and you kind of have to build an army to support him. So focus pieces are another big thing to think about when you're building a list. What is going to be your focus piece, and what are going to be your support units for that focus piece, when you're also trying to think about the objectives and if you have to split your army or not. So there's quite a lot of things that you have to fine tune when building a list, and you also have to play that list at least like 4 or 5 times to get an understanding of, all right, well, maybe I don't need this upgrade, or maybe I need this upgrade, or maybe this unit doesn't need this, or they need to stay closer together. Maybe this objective is going to be really well. So playtesting what you have is going to be important to figuring out an ideal list. Because I'll like post lists in all these videos, but they're not play tested. Some of them or most of them, and so if you guys ever decided to go off of this, like I think there was Penguin guy. Sorry, I forgot your name, but maybe like DDR Penguin or something like that had got an idea from the Iden Inferno and Veers and ATST list and kind of fine tuned it for himself, which you kind of just take the building blocks of the synergies and then you kind of mix and match. You can even look at high competitive players like Graeme and Austin and everybody else and look at their lists, maybe like make a copy of it and build in either what you do have and take the synergies they've got and kind of build it on your own and kind of go from there.
Yeah. I'll say, especially right now, not that there really ever should have been, but there is no shame in net listing right now. No one knows what's going on. Go ahead, look around.
Yeah, because a lot of
Um,
things are not fully play tested right now.
yeah,
And now everything is changed so drastically, especially with Exemplar. You've got to kind of expand your thinking of what works nowadays, and it's not going to be the same thing that worked pre 260 or 2.6, whatever you want to say.
actually, you could even say, like going back to a point you were making earlier about threat saturation. There's probably two different kinds of threat saturations, and it's one is kind of the rebel type of threat saturation where you're spreading out your forces more. You need a whole bunch of stuff that can attack from a whole bunch of different lanes. And then you have the, at very least, uh, Vader style threat saturation, and you want your triple dues, and you want them to be right there with them. So if something's getting through, you don't know what it is, but something's getting through.
Throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks or choose through.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like that is a huge thing that you have to think about, especially when you're trying to get more competitive. Is you know how am I going to approach the opponent with what I have, and how am I going to keep things together? Kind of like another example, especially what Kyler would say is Yoda Chewie have to stay together. You can't split them up. Same thing kind of goes with Cassian and K2, even though I think you can move K2 kind of far away, and he's going to be fine because he can support whoever, especially with nimble everywhere in the rebel army. Calculating the odds is going to be great for them, and so you have to kind of think about what you're going to be doing with your threat saturation and trying to keep them together to go towards a point, and that goes along with, all right, well, with bunker assault, that's going to be best. Maybe close the pocket, that's going to be the best, because you have to kind of meet in the middle, or you have to kind of meet at one point. Maybe intercept, you might be meeting at one point rather than recover the research, shifting priorities. You have to spread out everything, and so you can't. It's way harder for that type of list to deal with that objective, especially when you're trying to stay in a ball. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that kind of touched on that. I might have just gone way off topic on that threat saturation you were talking about.
No, no, yeah, that sounds good to me.
Well, did you have any other ideas on kind of like what to do when list building?
Don't believe so, honestly. Um, Other than just keep up the conversations because you never know where the idea is going to come from.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're playing for fun, to try anything, because in order to figure out a unit, you have to use that unit and make mistakes because you're going to learn more from those mistakes. Try new things like Obi-Wan and Anakin. Like they didn't really work together before. They probably don't really work well together now. But you might find something that actually does work, and uh, maybe their command cards will do well. Maybe I've seen an Anakin and Yoda list doing pretty hot. So you might find something Vader Krennic now with the free standbys and stuff. I would like to see who can come up with a really really good Inquisitor and or range trooper, or even with CIS. I know we haven't we I know I've kind of ignored CIS a little bit because we don't have Emperor here or anything like that to guide us. But
I was tempted to do a CIS list for an event, and then uh, the event fell through, unfortunately. But
man,
I mean, I fell into my own trap, and everything is range 2 except for B1s with no
uh,
heavies. So yeah, I'd still be interested in seeing how it went, but yeah, it was what uh, 2 repair bot B1s, 2 heal bot B1s, uh, Grievous, Dooku, 2 Magnas. Oh yeah, that's right. And I had a Droideka.
hmm.
And then it was 2 B2s with uh the Ha. So I had some impact somewhere.
Oh, nice. Um, I was actually just thinking, I think Poggle has a card where it says a friendly Sunfac loses direct Geonosian warriors, and then he gains coordinate. And so I wonder if paired with Dooku, Dooku finally now has direct a trooper unit, so you could direct a unit or direct an order onto Sunfac and then completely coordinate everything and then save the one unit uh, like order and just give it to somebody more important. So I think that, and I mean they're still range 2, but at least you can move fairly quickly with the bugs, and then maybe get some B2s in there because you know. So I keep saying that with direct trooper unit you can direct yourself. I'm assuming that is
Yeah.
okay. So yeah,
Yeah. I found that out. Like also against Tempest. Because he can Marquand can direct himself. Yep.
that is very nice.
No, no, it's not.
But yeah, man. That's kind of it for list building. Hopefully, everyone out there was able to learn a lot, and it's always nice getting to talk with you. I know we haven't had a video in a while, so it's nice getting one in. So
Absolutely.
everyone head on over to the Discord, find the Empire and Rebel and all those other kind of list sub channels, and kind of start putting in what you think. It's always nice to kind of see. I've gotten so much busier recently, especially with personal training and drone stuff, that it's harder for me to kind of like take the time to look. But everyone is commenting and doing really well, so head on over there and check that out. You can talk to Graeme, you can talk to me, you can talk to anybody, and yeah, that's mostly it. Any any not final words, but any kind of like ending stuff for you?
Uh, yeah, just go out there and, like you said, see what sticks. Make more lists.
Yep. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We will be back with another video at some point. I'll be back probably next week. But yeah, y'all take it easy and put some lists in the Discord. All right. Peace out. May the
See you
force be
later.
with you. Yeah, all those good things.